This is the Nasserman Hockey Podcast with James Nichols and John Zella.
Welcome back to the Nasserman Hockey Podcast. I'm John Zella. To my left is James Nichols of the fourth period. How are you?
Swell, Ben. I'm swell. How are you?
You got some sleep after a late night?
Yes. Sleep felt very good last night. You know what's funny? I find that sometimes when I get more sleep, I'm more tired when I wake up. So this morning I woke up and it was just tough because I got more sleep than I normally do.
I can get that sometimes.
Yeah,
I understand.
Yeah. So waking up wasn't fun, but I'm here. I'm energized and ready to go.
Very good. We got our start. We're not live tonight.
No.
But still got a little bit of a late start. Stupid groceries and life and things. But
damn adulting.
We're here. Damn adulting. I really wish.
It.
It's like the only time I leave the house is like getting groceries these days. So we're kind of back to crazy times. But anyway, we haven't done around the NHL in a while.
No, yeah.
I wanted to bring it back. There's been quite a bit of news. I'm sure we could have read through 32 thoughts verbatim, and it would have been interesting to kind of go point by point. But they have a whole podcast that does that.
Yeah.
That talks about a lot of it. So we won't do that. The first thing that I wanted to touch on, because it happened in kind of in between, and we did some post game stuff, so it kind of we weren't able to get to it. The Jordan Subban incident in the ECHL and the Boko Imama incident in the AHL, which I believe happened within 2 or 3 days of each other.
Yeah.
Did you have any thoughts on this, or? I'm almost at a loss for words for the most part when it comes to these incidents. It doesn't even sound harsh enough for it.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just, it's the same old story, right? We all know that there's no place in the NHL or in hockey in general for this kind of thing.
Or, just like regular life.
Yeah, right. That's a better point. Regular life. This is the second time in like 2 years this has happened to Boko Imama too, which is just really unfortunate.
That we know of, right? I think that's a big point.
That's
on this.
true.
It's that these are getting caught on camera.
Yeah.
There's people there, whatever the case is. This happens all the time. Probably way more than anybody would want to admit.
Right.
So I think that's the hard part. It's not so sorry for this incident.
Yeah.
It's sorry for the ones we're not hearing. Sorry for this one. Sorry for anything that happens. Like it's you have to feel for them and then, try to do your part,
Yeah, so it was good to see that the player that taunted Boko Imama actually got, a significant suspension. I think it was something like 30 games.
That's right.
That's I'm never gonna sit here and be like, yeah, that's enough, because it's not, but it's better. So I guess I guess I want to say it's getting better, but at the same time, these things are still happening. So is it
2 days apart?
Right.
Like
2 days apart.
It's not like you didn't know that was something was going to happen there.
Yeah.
And with Jordan Subban in ECHL, I heard this question get asked on a couple other shows and just kind of around that. What if it wasn't Jordan Subban's brother? Like, what if that didn't get the amplification? Would that have, and does it have to come to that? Like, does it have to be this kind of, I don't want to call it a hockey dynasty, but it's not the Suitors or something, but or even the Stalls, not yet anyway, because his younger brothers are quite younger and still have a shot to kind of make their way. Malcolm, Jordan, whatever. There may be another one. I don't know. It was kind of like the Stalls. There was like another one every few years. You're like, I didn't know there was another one out there.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of the problem, is like there's this kind of hockey family that's very, very well known. And what happens if it wasn't that? And that's why I say the ones that we're not hearing about.
Yeah, no, it's a fair question. And the thing with that, there was a discrepancy with the Jordan Subban one too, right? Because the player who taunted Jordan Subban had said like, "Oh, I wasn't making that gesture. I was kind of making like a tough guy, muscle man gesture." So, I mean, I guess it's, if they're going to try and open it to interpretation,
It's just
it,
not. I mean,
it
I think that's the problem.
it's
It's
right.
you have to just know better. Your intent versus how it's received is also not the same thing. You have to like. There's a whole lot of stuff. Like I think there's just like an accountability thing.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't really matter what you intended something to be if it's offensive. And we're not talking about, people are very quick to point out little things and everyone gets offended these days. Like this is not that,
Yeah.
right? Like this is very, very different. I
It's just
think
I'm ready for when we don't have to talk about this anymore, and I don't mean that like I'm sick of talking about it. I mean like I want it to just be the norm for this not to happen.
right. And then for uh fellow white reporters going and defending the kid and saying I'm not even going to name the reporters so that they don't deserve the clicks or anything, but there's
Yeah.
two in particular. Um One that I think I even retweeted, and actually, um, there's there's like old takes exposed. There's a
Yeah.
Twitter account. There's now a an account current takes bad.
That's pretty funny.
So I tagged them in that post, retweeting it. So if you go check out my account, you'll see it there. And I just that's kind of the problem too, is that you kind of there's still a faction of reporters not really telling the story correctly, and
Yeah.
they're trying to put different spins on it. And it's disgusting. I
Yeah.
think the NHL's silence on this, and so much as saying, and so much as not saying, if you do this, you're done, right? Because they set the tone for every league in North America and beyond. It goes for the Ukraine incident. I'm sorry, the incident in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Um, and with the players, you see some people coming out and saying at the league and the teams and everything that they were listening, they were talking, they were learning. It's fucking test day, dude. Figure it out.
Yeah.
You can't study all the time. Like the test is here. You have to do something. It's got to be more than that.
Yeah.
It's got to be more than empty statements. It's very tough to kind of watch it from that perspective. So we all kind of have to go out there and make sure that we're striving for the same thing for everyone involved in hockey. We can't just keep saying hockey is for everybody.
Yeah.
Um, Moving on, hard right turn, as I've heard many radio hosts say before. Sometimes it's really hard to just kind of get on to the next
Transition.
subject, transition to the next subject after that. Another kind of controversial thing, not nearly on the same level,
No, different
but
kind.
controversial nonetheless, was the Aaron Dell hit on Drake Batherson,
Yeah.
um, whose sister is actually Drake Batherson's sister plays at Syracuse University for the D1
Oh,
program. I learned that
interesting.
very recently. I thought it was pretty cool. They've
I
had a
learned that
couple.
just now.
Um, they've had a couple players kind of go on and play. Lindsey Eastwood played for Syracuse, is now in the Toronto Six. It's very cool that the program's kind of building up and they're producing players. But either
Yeah.
way, Drake Batherson got hit by Aaron Dell. Want to get your take on that because it's kind of sparked a little bit of controversy.
It's not the first time he's done it.
It's
So,
not, no.
yeah, Drake Batherson's gonna be out long term. I think they gave, Dell 3 games. These kinds of obvious hits, that there was intent to hurt there, in my opinion, from what I saw, right? It
It's
wasn't
a
just
cheap
one.
play because Tom Wilson's done stuff like that.
Yeah,
You've seen, I almost said Ty Domi, if you've, but something like that, where it's a Matt Cook, Ty Domi,
yeah,
like the little Ty Domi thing against Scott Niedermayer. If you remember, this is like the 2003 Stanley Cup
mhm.
playoffs where he gave the little elbow to Niedermayer, knocked him out cold. Like it's those little cheap shots that are just unnecessary.
Yeah, so, the cheap shots that I mean, he didn't even have the puck. He was going to get it. It was behind the net, but, Dell came out of his crease. It was a cheap shot that Batherson wasn't expecting, and then ultimately he was injured long term from it. So, I don't know. I know often they don't make decisions based on the result of what happens in these situations, but the fact that Batherson's out long term, I think should be a factor in how long he was suspended for. I don't think 3 games is nearly enough. I think it should have been like minimum 10.
It wasn't accidental. Where,
No.
like last night against the Flyers, you could argue that I forget who ran into Sorokin, but the incident there where he was trying to go to the inside and he clipped Sorokin, right? That
Yeah,
wasn't
that was different.
neither of those players were intending to hit the other. I really don't think it's a penalty, frankly.
Right.
Um, it wouldn't be cool if Philly scores on that play, but like Sorokin's out of the net. He's not looking. The other guy sees Sorokin near the boards. It's like, okay, I need the inside track. Mayfield's right behind him, kind of forcing him to the inside.
Yeah.
It's really not like, he's not trying to hit him. This isn't a break. This isn't Chris Kreider on a breakaway, just kind of going full bore into every goalie ever. It's a little bit different situation. And this with Dell, it was like you said, there was a lot of intent there.
Yeah.
It's the puck was gone. He looks over his shoulder. He sees him coming, and he bumps him, and Batherson's kind of going around the net there, falls down, and you really see his knee buckle there, and it's
Yeah.
uncomfortable to watch. If you haven't seen it, definitely go check it out. Maybe up until Batherson hits the boards, keep your finger on the pause button there. But Dell isn't really even any good. It wasn't a tight game. Like it wasn't like there was
And it's not
nothing
like
there, right? He was getting beat up. It's
it's not
three
like
nothing.
Buffalo's playing for anything.
No, it just seems it makes it the more you dig into it, the more thoughtless it seems.
Yeah.
Um, you hear the word intent and you think there's some forethought on it, but all he's thinking, the intention there is just to hurt somebody,
Yeah.
which also, doesn't belong in hockey. That's just not a good this is
Yeah.
not a good play. Um, moving on, last point with around the NHL. Again, we haven't done this in a while, so good to kind of be chatting about some other teams for a second, especially after a post game. Who's surprising you? East and West. Some different teams kind of leading the way. Some surprises, I think,
Yeah.
in both conferences. What are you thinking there?
Yeah, so I'll start out in the Pacific. It's no surprise that Vegas is leading that division, but then 2 and 3 are California, Anaheim, and Los Angeles. So those two teams, I mean, full of young guys. They have their fair share of veterans too, who have been around, but full of young talent, and their young talent has really taken considerable strides forward this season. So it's looking real good for the state of California minus San Jose, but even they're still winning at like a 524 point percentage pace right now. So they're playing pretty good too. But Anaheim and Los Angeles out in the West are definitely surprising me. I'm a little surprised at how bad Seattle is. I didn't think that they were going to be terrible, but they're pretty bad. Their defense, when they were drafted, I thought it was going to be pretty decent. And I don't know if it's because Philip Grubauer has been so bad, but their goal differential is a minus 40. So, I mean, that also is a lack of goal scoring there as well. But Grubauer has been pretty bad. And their defense just can't make up for how bad he has been. Over in the West, I mean, I didn't think Nashville was going to be as good as they are, second place, just a couple points behind Colorado. I thought they were like a wild card team, but they've been very good. I really like Nashville.
And
I'm
that's
surprised.
disappointing for you because there's players on that team that you're every season after season you're kind of hoping
Yeah,
pop over the
a few
Islanders.
guys on Nashville who would definitely look good in the Islander uniform. But they're doing well, and you'd have to think Philip Forsberg is sitting there saying, "Hey, maybe I do want to stay here for a couple more years." Surprised Dallas is not as good as they should be. I thought Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin were due for bounce back years. Not happening over there. And Winnipeg, I thought they were better than sixth place and 41 points at this point of the season. So um,
Just to
over
stick on the West for a second, with Anaheim,
yeah,
John Gibson's finally getting a team to play in front of him.
yep,
He's very good. He's having a great season.
yeah, a large
His
part of the
best in
reason.
2 years, because he's had really good years with them. He just doesn't, hasn't really gotten the support as of late. So it's good to see him have a bounce back year.
Yeah,
And with the Jets, Hellebuyck can't just do it forever, right? Like he's not able to do that in front of them, and they kind of continue to have their own issues and inconsistencies. So, like I said, he can't be doing that. And as far as Seattle, I think they're playing the cap game. I think they're kind of waiting to see. I don't think they were going for it in year one. Uh, this offseason will be interesting because they have a lot more cap space right off the hop, plus maybe some players that they can move around at the deadline to open up some even some more space. They have a lot of roster room. They're definitely going to be a player moving forward, but I think that first year, they knew that they could ride the wave of just being a new team, the inaugural season. People are going to come. They were going to get the press and all that kind of stuff. They didn't really need the product the same as other teams.
Right.
They're not terrible. They're just not as good as people were expecting, and they can thank Vegas for that. But yeah, go with the East now.
Out east, I want to start with Florida, and I want to say that I'm not surprised that they're good. I'm surprised that they're as good as they are, given that they just don't stop putting pucks in the net, right?
Scary
Tampa
good offense.
Tampa Bay
Scary
is
good.
notorious for scoring a lot of goals. They're at a plus 26 goal differential. Florida is at a plus 50. That's double the amount of Tampa Bay. That's insane.
Can you, without looking, because I know you're looking at NHL.com, without scrolling down, how many more goals do you think Florida has scored than the Islanders? I'm
Oh
gonna try to do some
God.
quick math here.
Uh I don't know how many goals they've scored. I want to say they've scored like 120 more goals than the Islanders.
All right, so Florida scored 175. Change your answer.
Uh 100.
100 more. That's really close. It's
Wow.
91 more goals.
Oh, it's not. Oh, wow.
Now,
That's pretty
granted, they've
close.
they've played 8 more games, but the Islanders are not making that up.
No.
In eight, they're not going to score 10 plus goals a game for a
91
while.
more goals.
91 more goals. Now the Islanders
Yeah.
have scored the least in the East, even less than Montreal, although their goal different they've only let in 94, which is tied for the least with Carolina in the East. Going over to the West, yeah, that's they're way less.
They have the
They'd be way
biggest goal
less.
differential in the league. Carolina's not far behind at plus 46, but it's insane how many goals they're scoring.
Yeah, they've just had some better goaltending than Florida's played some high scoring games. There was a
Yeah.
time where they didn't score. There was like a week or two, maybe 10 days where they didn't score less than like 5 or 6 goals in a
Yeah.
game.
One player on that team that just it still bewilders me how long it took him to find a home is Anthony Duclair. He's leading the team. He's got 17 goals, and I think he's up there in points as well.
We were talking about the Islanders trying to pick him up.
He's a player who, yeah, the Islanders could have used a guy like him, and I can't believe how many teams he has already been on in his young career. He's not even 27 yet. I think he's 26. So I'm happy to see that he found a home in Florida and he's thriving over there with the rest of that young team. Who's
And Joe Thornton,
Joe Thornton? Yeah, he's thriving
two
over
good
in Florida
goalies,
with two very good goalies, a
Aaron
Stanley Cup
Ekblad.
contender, Ekblad. They have obviously Barkov and Huberdeau, and that kid Anton Lundell is like Barkov 2.0. Florida's going to be a problem, and they're going to be a problem for a really long time.
Yeah, I hope that they can stick at the top of the division in the Atlantic and maybe play one of those wild card teams. Hopefully, it's not the Islanders, but
Yeah,
if the Islanders don't make the playoffs, I'd love for them to just make the second round and make some noise because a lot of times really good teams get knocked out kind of every year. The
yeah,
2 and 3 seed in each division play each other, and you lose a good team. So you kind of hope that they can go for it. I'd love to see somehow uh, Tampa and Florida play a little bit deeper than a playing round or something like that
yeah.
um, in the playoffs. So yeah, hopefully they can continue. Anyone else in the East?
No, that's it for me. I mean, everybody else is pretty much status quo. I guess you could say the Rangers too, right? I expected them to be a good team this year, not a first place team in the Metropolitan Division. So I guess they took an extra step that I was expecting them to.
They're playing great at home. Shesterkin is playing out of his mind. Reminds you a lot of the Henrik Lundqvist years, right? Where they just have a goalie and a defender that are just going to lead the way, couple forwards
Yeah,
that can really get it done. And it's just the question that I keep seeing is it enough? They're obviously really good, right? It's
yeah,
not a that isn't the question. Is it will it be enough in the playoffs? You've seen it with Toronto, you saw it with the Islanders in year one with Barry Trotz. You see it with a lot of teams. Florida's been very good the last few years.
yeah,
How long did it take Washington to get over the hump?
yeah,
They lost in the second round year after year to the Penguins and the same kind of teams. The Rangers, this is a very different group than other playoff years that they've had. So they all have something to kind of prove to each other. It's a good story.
yeah.
They have a lot of the right pieces, I think. But
I think what you said about it being similar to the Lundqvist era is very accurate. in the sense that I think Shesterkin is playing out of his mind. And they have that one really good defender in Adam Fox and a couple of good other defenders around him too. I just don't think they play well enough in front of Shesterkin to sustain a playoff run.
I mean, he can get hot. It just if they
Yeah.
they're gonna make the playoffs, right? Like their
Oh yeah.
positioning, they're in really good shape.
Yeah.
A hot goalie, you just have to win.
It's true.
And you don't even have to win 4 games each time in a row. You can win 2, lose 2, win 2. Like you
Yeah.
can it's all very doable in that way. So it's as long as they can play like remotely consistent in front of him. It's and he plays kind of out of his mind. And we've seen good goalies just do that, carrying teams um that aren't through and through good playoff teams way further than they deserved.
Yeah.
Um, it's kind of a mix, right? There's some kind of underdog teams you can call Montreal, you can call it the Islanders for the most part, where on paper you're like, what the hell? But they play great systems. They play playoff hockey. They can do that. Other teams just have a few pieces that just are playing out of their face
Yeah.
and kind of propel them far into the playoffs. So I think just for them making the playoffs, probably just getting out of the first round would be an amazing feat for them, considering the note they put out a few years ago rebuilding.
Yep.
That's awesome. Um, good to see that rivalry. We want two good teams. It always feels nice to beat the Rangers, but it's better when they're good.
Yeah.
And there's a lot less excuses with that way. Oh, we're rebuilding, blah blah. No, we beat you. It was good. Whatever. Um, so we'll see how it shakes out. At this point, it's possible that the Rangers and Islanders could play in the first round if the Islanders make it,
Yeah.
depending on what the final tally is
That would be
between them and
exciting.
Florida and whomever. So that would be really exciting. So I'll take that first round playoff series, no matter how it shakes out. That'd be really exciting.
Yeah.
Would be so much to talk about, a lot of shit talking,
Yeah.
and all the rest of that. Getting back almost to the Island, we're going to take a step towards it. Um, the Oilers are supposedly interested in Semyon Varlamov. Elliot Friedman had thrown that out there. Your contacts over at the fourth period um, threw cold water on that. Do you want to kind of dive into it as much as you can?
Yeah, I looked into it a little bit. Like I saw what Friedman wrote, went back to the fourth period and spoke to a few people, and I was just like, anybody got anything on this? And the consensus was, yeah, that Edmonton checked in, not much traction there. No clarification on which side there was no traction from. Obviously Edmonton reached out. The Islanders, whether they were receptive or not, was unclear. But it's just I don't think it's something that's imminent at all right now. I don't even think it's going to happen this season if it happens at all. Seems
To
more
me,
like an
it seems like an off-season thing.
Yeah, it
Sorry.
seems more like an off-season thing than it does a trade deadline thing. The Islanders still plan to make the playoffs. As funny as that might sound to you, listener, right now, it's true. They are aiming for the playoffs still. They know what they have in the room. They believe in each other, so they're going to still try and do it. And with the stretch of games coming up, there's something like 47 games left. It's almost every other night. I think 3 or 4 back-to-backs. They're going to need Varlamov, and there's nobody in the system to play in his place. I know that you can say, oh, they could trade for Koskinen in that trade. They could, but that's not going to give them their best chance to make the playoffs, which they're still trying to do. So I doubt it happens at the trade deadline. Maybe it happens in the offseason, but I am a firm believer that Varlamov will play out his contract with the Islanders.
I'm on that belief as well. The off-season could be um, the changer on that.
Could be.
Right. So if they know that they're not, and we said this a couple episodes ago, they're not going to do what they did with Chara, right? They're gonna before they make that move, they have to know what else they can do. Or at least in the offseason, you have that cap flexibility. You can just sign
Yeah.
them, trade Varlamov, but you have to have something lined up. They've done really well with the two goalie system, that
Yeah.
tandem kind of platoon there. I don't see that going away. If they intend on making the playoffs, they have a ton of back to backs. I think they have 9 or 10 left, which is quite a bit. So they need both of these goalies. Sorokin likes to play, but you can't play him back to back all the time, and
Sure.
you need every point that you can get. So, and I do want to talk about the goalies later. I'm going to make a quick note here, because I want to come back to this, but I want to move on and,
Sure.
and take a step firmly onto the island, um, into some galaxy brain stuff that every time something like this drops, uh,
We always got to
on
talk about it.
we always have to talk about it because it is interesting,
It's
and it
fun.
blew the last time, those conversations kind of blew up. The reverse retros, part two. Um,
Do.
part two. Are you saying that because of VH1? Do you remember
Yeah,
that?
of course.
Dude, I think we just age ourselves, right? Because there's a lot of people that are like, first of all, what the hell is a VH1?
I know.
It was like old man or old people MTV.
Yeah.
I don't even remember what.
Do you remember just waking up before school and watching music videos all morning?
Oh my god.
This is the best.
Yeah, that was how new music happened. Like a
Yeah.
new band would drop, and um yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, VH1, and then they both started doing like reality shows, and
Yeah.
it was crazy. I say that all the time and no one gets that joke. I'm very disappointed. Like I
This is
put that
very
in.
fitting for reverse retro, by the way.
This is
It
perfect.
just
That's why I'm
works.
keeping it going. I mean, that's why I'm keeping it going. There's no reason
Yeah.
not to discuss this. Um so reverse retro, what do you think, because we have to speculate here.
Of
That's the
course.
fun in it. I'm wearing my um
Not a fisherman.
wave, not a fisherman jersey, but the wave jersey, and
Yeah.
I'm wearing my probably circa 2001 beanie here, because it still has the three stripes on it, so it's definitely quite old on the stick there. It's
Yeah.
got a little CCM embroider on the back, so this goes with probably one of the oldest
That's called
piece.
vintage there, pal.
Now it is,
Yeah.
which is not
We
fun.
we just aged ourselves twice in the last 5 minutes.
No, I don't like that. Like I do have, I've one piece of memorabilia from the fisherman era that was mine from when I was a kid. Everything else I'd purchased later, like I've just
Yeah.
done it. This hat is one of the early ones, and I have a flag and some other things that are
Very nice.
from that area, that era that I owned. Some things from the early 2000s. But anyway, what do you want to speculate? What are you going to throw out there, or what are your top picks? Because there's a lot of people. What do they want to see again? Because we get to kind of go over this, so we're kind of reiterating what we talked about. So, but what are you thinking?
Yeah. So there was a comment about the reverse retros, and they were gonna, push the needle on it and really define the reverse retro quote unquote definition. I don't know if the Islanders are one of those teams who are gonna do it. If Lamoriello is still in office, you can bet it's probably just gonna be something safe like it was last time. However, obviously people want the fisherman, whether it's the blue or the white. There is that really great mock-up on the Matthew Barzell picture out there, and it looks really good. If they could just take that and do it,
You
that would
mean
just
with the teal?
yeah, with the
That's the
teal,
one. Okay.
it just looks so sweet. And in the modern, I guess the modern equipment and the style of how hockey players look now, it just looks so good. I know it might remind you of an era you don't want to think of, but it's just for fun. And if you could just remove that and just have fun with it, why not?
100%.
If
That's
it's
where
not the
I'm at.
fisherman, people do also say they could just do the wave logo that with the
If that's
logo
the
on it,
regular crest, it's not
and
even
that's fine
crazy.
too, right? White or blue is a okay with pretty much I
Or
think everybody.
yeah, or do an orange version, or do a green
And
version,
then
or whatever is
right,
gonna happen.
and then you get to the 2002 alternate orange jerseys, and you say to yourself, that's actually probably the most likely of any of the former jerseys to return.
Because you do a blue version of that.
You could do a blue version, you could do a white version with orange accents, which I actually think would be pretty clean.
You love I do you, all right. What I'm gonna ask you this question. It's a leading question. What color were your hockey gloves growing up?
Black.
I thought you were gonna say white because that seems like super flashy. Early 2000s. Those kids. I never liked those kids with
You'll
white
never
gloves.
even guess the brand.
I'll never guess the brand of gloves that you had.
Yeah. I
What
okay,
era?
I
What
do
era?
wanna
Just give
say
me a hint.
after these, I was strictly CCM, but up until my dad was like, "Okay, I'll pony up and get you some real equipment." Guess what I had when I was 10 years old?
Oh, 10 years old?
Yeah. I
Yikes.
I I had them from, like, when I was 5 to, like, I had them for 5 years, and I can't get them out of my brain.
Sherwood.
No. They're not even, like
Oh, like rolling gloves or something? Like some,
no,
like, 80s thing?
they were Eagle.
Oh my god, I haven't thought about
Eagle.
Eagle equipment in
I had
forever.
Eagle gloves.
Dude, so one of my early, I had a pair of CCM gloves, some of my early ones. Then I had a pair of the black and white, leather Nike ones,
Oh,
which were sick.
that's very Alex Ovechkin of you.
Yeah, they were oh man, it was super cool back then.
Yeah.
And then I had some Sherwood mitts, and then, you'll never guess the brand. The ones I still use to this day.
Coho.
No,
Damn.
that would be incredible. They're not a newer brand um, like True Hockey or something like that. Kyle Oposo used to wear this equipment, and they didn't have an NHL deal for very long.
Warrior?
No, that era, but Torspo, which like nobody I
Oh.
didn't get it. I got it seriously. I got it because Oposo wore it.
Yeah.
And I saw, I was like, "Oh, that's cool." I wanted 4-roll gloves, like simple black 4-roll gloves. They weren't very expensive. I think 60, $70. I need to get them repalmed or tape them up or something, probably duct tape. Um, we'll see. I just have my fingers hanging out of my my gloves all the time. But I got them, yeah, because of Post On. They were just simple, cheap. I wasn't trying to be a hipster about it. Although I know a fellow Islander fan on my team has a Torspol bag.
Wow.
So I assume it was the same reason. I never asked him
Yeah.
uh, why why he had it, what inspired him to get it. But um, yeah, so I think so. I asked that question because that's a very just a, a white jersey with orange is very like in
Well,
your
you don't
face.
see it, and it would if they
I'm
can
trying to think
do
of
it.
wouldn't that what's the most likely? So you had me until that point because I'm trying to think of what's the most likely, which is the least fun. What's the most likely thing Lou would do? And I
Bring
think
back the
it's
dark
like,
blues. That's the most likely thing he'll do is
well,
bring back the dark
I think a
blues.
blue version of the pumpkin jersey, like
They could do that too.
that would look kind of similar to like the '06. I don't know why I have this in my head in particular, but like the '06 Edmonton Oilers
Okay.
jersey with
Yeah,
like
yeah,
I
yeah.
had like a big oil spill thing on it, but
Yeah.
obviously with like I have that in my brain where it's like blue and white, maybe no
Okay.
orange in it or something,
I could see it.
um, just to be different. Maybe they just switch things around, but yeah, I would love for them to do the jersey that I'm wearing. I think bringing at least the lighthouse back on the shoulders, that would be fun. But then mix the colors up a little
Yeah.
bit. You forget there's gray in this
It would be
too.
cool
Like
too
I don't
if
remember that. Like it's not a color part of the color scheme that I remember.
yeah, that's true. It'd be cool too if they decided that, like Vegas did, they made an alternate logo and it was the lighthouse for the reverse retro. That'd be cool too. But I don't see them getting that
What if
creative.
they did? It wouldn't be retro.
Oh
What if they
God.
just did a white jersey with a black logo, like the reverse of what they did in Brooklyn? Because they never had a white jersey of Brooklyn.
No.
No,
No. No.
that's
Why?
simple enough. I'm thinking about like that's
Leave
simple enough.
Brooklyn in Brooklyn. It's
That's
over.
totally fine. I'll say this though. Didn't you love the All-Star jerseys that were black and white?
They were fun, but I much prefer the
You want some color.
I get that every team did it. Um and it was fun for that year. I much prefer when the All-Star game and like this year they're gonna have at the skills competition, everyone's gonna be wearing, their own team jersey like they always do, but everyone's gonna be wearing that really cool jersey that they're making this year, the blue or the red, with
Oh,
the
yeah,
NHL
as an
logo
All-Star
on it.
jersey, yes. I prefer actually having All-Star jerseys. Sometimes
Yeah.
they've been not good.
Yeah.
I reminisce about the '90s and those early 2000s. I love the World versus North America All-Star jerseys. Those were a lot of fun. I had a World jersey way back when.
I have one of
Um,
those.
I would love the North America one at this point. They did a good job with the World Cup jerseys. Yeah, I hope the Islanders can have some fun. I don't even honestly, an orange version of their jersey.
Yeah,
It's a
that'd be cool
just
too.
like I think that's like one of those like, oh, this is the '93 jersey in orange.
Yeah,
Like, it doesn't need to be anything more complicated than that. It would be very different for them. It would kind of go back to that, uh, the pumpkin jerseys a little bit,
yeah,
but it would also you can pick an era, whatever it is, and kind of do your thing. Um, but yeah, I hope they have fun with it. I
yeah.
want them to be creative. The other one just it looked good. It was just not what they said, right?
Right,
It was the 2002 jersey with some things flipped around, right? It was hardly those 80s jerseys because that blue is way too dark.
right,
It was still really cool.
right.
I really liked it. Again, that's a lot of nostalgia for me, just remembering, 2001 and 2002, whatever, which is 20 years ago. So I'll let you sit on that for a second. Uh,
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
It was a good
Actually,
show.
yeah, so sit on that while stew over that while we go to a quick break.
Nassau Hockey is brought to you by DraftKings. We're on to the divisional round of the NFL playoffs, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, is celebrating with huge odds boosts for new customers. Counting down to Super Bowl 56, new customers can get 56 to 1 odds on any team. Bet just $5 and get $280 in free bets if your team wins. If Sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, you can still get in on the action of the divisional round. Everyone can play for huge cash prizes with DraftKings daily fantasy football contests. DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now, use promo code THPN, and get 56 to 1 odds on any NFL team. Bet just $5 and win $280 in free bets if your team wins. That's promo code THPN for 56 to 1 odds at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 years or older, New Jersey, Indiana, and Pennsylvania only. New customers only, minimum $5 deposit and $1 wager required. One per customer, restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Nassau Hockey is also brought to you by Manscaped. Roses are red, violets are blue. Don't let wild hairs wreck you. Valentine's Day is just around the corner, and our sponsors at Manscaped are here with the best tools to get you ready for the special occasion. This Valentine's Day, it's time to join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped, the leaders in below-the-waist grooming. With our exclusive offer, go to manscaped.com and use promo code NHP20 for 20% off and free shipping. The holidays went by so quickly. Did you shore up your grooming game routine with the best tools for the job? The Performance Package 4.0 from Manscaped is just the thing every guy needs in their life to make sure each and every day is a little more special. The number one product in this package is the Lawnmower 4.0. This electric trimmer is designed to trim hair on loose skin. And get this, the trimmer's advanced skin-safe technology reduces cuts, nicks, and everything else on your body. It even has a 400K LED spotlight so you can shave in the dark. Did I mention that it's waterproof too? Manscaped even threw in 2 free gifts with the Performance Package 4.0. Their Shed Travel Bag and Anti-Chafing Boxer Briefs to keep you comfy everywhere. Trust me, they're a big hit. Wearing them right now, and I love them. Get 20% off and free shipping with promo code NHP20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code NHP20. Join Cupid and shoot your arrow with Manscaped this Valentine's Day.
Welcome back. I will say, boxers are great.
Yep.
Definitely get those if anything. All the products are very good. And use the guard. That's all I'm going to say. We won't need to go into details. Comes with some stuff. Use it. I think it's you won't regret it. Anyway, firmly onto the island. We've landed.
We have.
This isn't an ad. We've landed on Long Island. I want to start with, I think, kind of like the man of the hour on the Islanders right now, with just an incredible comeback as we kind of enter the second half of the season for the Islanders, however slowly.
Yeah.
The second half of the season, Mr. Zachary Parise. Heck of a little stretch here. Watch out. Here he comes. Talk about what's going on with Mr. Parise.
What's that thing that I keep saying about him since the beginning of the season and his first game? He's oh right, the hardest working Islander on the ice, night in and night out, and it's finally paying off for Mr. Zach Parise. He's got 6 points, 2 goals, 4 assists in his last 7 games. He's just playing his ass off right now. He did tell the guys, "Hey, I'm a second half player." I looked into a little bit. Yeah, a couple more points than the first half of the season in his career, month by month. He tends to score a little bit more towards the latter half of his seasons, and it's just he has the speed still. He has the IQ still. It's just now he's got to finish. And I yesterday in obviously the Flyers aren't playing well, but what I saw out of Parise yesterday was just confidence and he was just playing like Zach Parise of old. The Forget about the goal for a second. The assist on Matthew Barzell's power play goal was just fantastic. He got the puck, he knew exactly where Barzell was and took no time between receiving the pass and then giving the pass, and he threaded a needle. It was a crisp, hard pass, and it was right to the tape of Barzell's stick. And next thing you know, it's in the back of the net. So I really like what I'm seeing from Parise. I've always really liked what I've seen from Parise, and now the points are coming. Everyone was ready to shoot him to the moon, and now it's looking like everyone's happy that he's an Islander. So happy for him. You can't not be, and you hope to see it continue.
It's paying off for him and the team. It's definitely what they needed.
Yeah,
Another hardworking player in the bottom six there. And a thought just popped into my head where, and we'll get to the fourth line in a second. But you imagine like what would a future fourth line look like if it wasn't the current configuration? Who's injured? Who's whatever? Who's going to be re-signed and brought back and this and that? A Parise, Cizikas, Zarnik, or some other kind of player. It's a lot of energy out there between
yeah,
Cizikas and Parise for sure is would be great for me. That's two hardworking players. That's good for your penalty kill. They need to kind of replace Clutterbuck in that regard. Even if it was Johnson, Parise, Cizikas, Johnson on that as a fourth line, I think that's doable. I don't think that's crazy to kind of thinking about the future a little bit. But that would do it for me. I like Parise if they can find a spot for him, 13th, 14th forward if he's looking for in the future. Maybe they can continue to keep him on that third line if they have the roster space. Your fingers are crossed for some kind of offseason move where you're moving a Palmieri down the lineup a little bit and you're kind of shaking some things up, maybe in your middle six. But I think you're happy with Parise right now, and if you can continue this, it's really good. Um, and speaking of the fourth line, of course, following my comments, the fourth line comes back, makes me to crow. They're playing much better as of late after uh, my comments of saying maybe it's time for them to hang it up. It wasn't working. They didn't have the energy. Um, they've turned it around. What have you seen out of that fourth line as of late?
yeah. The player that stands out to me amongst the trio is Clutterbuck. He's been especially good. And given how you and I were actually both saying that he didn't look right, and that was before this season, and maybe he's got like a long-term injury that he can't shake, but he's coming to this season looking better than ever, really, in my opinion. He's the energy right now. Cizikas is still playing well.
He stepped
Um,
up lately. Like his
he has
energy's
stepped up
back.
lately,
He
but
looks
but
good.
Clutterbuck has been the energy all season, so he's been really good. Yesterday he was a penalty killer. He
Oh, that one
literally
touch though, where he had Zizekas breaking and he just
he
he,
did.
he needed to kind of put into
Yeah,
to an area for him to skate into it. He put a little too much mustard on it, but
he did, but everything other than that, I mean, he was personally making sure that the puck was not in the Islanders' end when he was on the ice for the penalty kill. So he's been so good. And again, as a trio, they've been all good together. Yesterday, I was really surprised Matt Martin didn't get on the board. He was
he
out
had a
there.
lot of chances.
He had like three or four, and he was sniffing around the net for one, and He came close a couple times, but and you know, even if he doesn't score there and he could just play like that every game, you'll take it, right? You don't expect the fourth line to score you a ton of goals, but if they can create chances like that, then yeah, you take that all day. So they've been great. I have nothing to say negatively about them in the last week and a half.
Yeah, I was gonna comment on Martin if you didn't. He had a lot of chances. I thought that was really great. And their
Yeah,
role as a fourth line, other than uh just like hemming other teams in the other zone, is to get some chances. But
yeah,
get there because usually they're out there, they're trying to line match against some of the other teams, more skilled players, and they can get them out there for 30 seconds and hemming them in their own zone, especially in the second period with the long change. And the Islanders can get out there, a fresh line. You can really make some things happen out there. So I've liked their energy and their kind of completeness as of late. It's been really good.
mhm,
That's they're going to need that to continue if they're going to make this push here. Which, if you follow the Isles Magic number Twitter account, you can kind of see how that's going day to day. That number is currently at 98. I don't really understand how this works, so I'm happy there's somebody out there doing the math, telling me when things can change, when things can't change. As we record this, or at least earlier today, the number moves if Washington loses points. Um, so we'll keep an eye on that because um, Washington and Boston are the teams right now that the Islanders are chasing.
yep,
Washington is trending down a little bit, so that
kind of,
might actually be the team they're chasing because the Islanders have more games in hand on
yep,
Washington than they do on Boston, and Boston's done a lot with those games in hand. So if Washington's going to go down, the Islanders really need to take advantage of that, and
yep,
our fingers are crossed that's what they do. Uh, Going back a little bit, because we haven't had a chance to talk about this, there's been a lot of the Flyers game on Tuesday night. We're gonna go back to Saturday night, where the offense was unable to kind of crack uh, the Toronto Maple Leafs, who've gotten the better of the Islanders really since Sheldon Keefe's taken over.
yeah,
There were a lot of instances under Babcock where the Islanders really got the better of the Leafs. It's definitely switched. Granted, last year they didn't see each other, but it's a little more even, if a little bit leaning to the Leafs' favor. Um, looking over the whole game, we can try to get into some specifics. I definitely have some questions about even before the game. Um, what did you see during that game? Was it frustrating? Did they look good and couldn't finish? Parise gets a goal in that game as well. Walk me through it a little bit.
part of what I wrote about the other day was that the Islanders get outpossessed by good teams, particularly because Barzell is their only puck possession player, and he's trying to drive most of the offense himself. It's not that they're a one line team, right? They're a four-line team, but they don't have a play driver other than Barzell to really
Right.
drive play on the other three lines. Bavilier has the skill set to be that too. It's not happening for him right now, and the jury is still out on if he can be that player moving forward. But this is what I was talking about. The Maple Leafs have a lot of play drivers. They have Mitch Marner, they have William Nylander, they have John Tavares, they have, Austin Matthews will score you 40 goals, but he can also drive play. I understand that those players are not easy to come by and they drafted well and they have those players because they drafted well, but the fact of the matter is that Barzell's the only one for the Islanders, and that's not even including the defensemen, right? Morgan Riley can do it for them. I think Timothy Liljegren, if that's how you pronounce it, is starting to
Lilgren,
be
yeah.
that player for them. So, Dobson's doing it here and there. He's cooled off lately, but it's just Barzell.
He's Dobson's playing. He's still playing well.
Yes,
If he could get the puck on Wallstrom's stick on the power play, you might be able to move that forward a little bit.
sure. But this is my point, right? What I wrote the other day about the Islanders needing a playmaker, I wasn't sitting there saying they need another guy who can just pass pucks. Josh Bailey is doing a good job at passing, right? He's leading the team in assists, and he's got a good amount of points, and yes, he's a good passer. he's not driving offense, and only Barzell is doing that. You look at the Hurricanes, the reason why they're so good is because they'll just skate circles around you all day. They'll possess the puck and they'll create scoring opportunities, right? You have your Ahos, you have your Teravainens, you have your Svechnikovs. The Islanders only have Barzell playing that kind of game. And this is the kind of player that the Islanders need, a puck possession playmaker to make the finishers around them better, right? Because you look at, again, the Toronto Maple Leafs who won the other night, and it wasn't Austin Matthews scoring to win. It wasn't Mitch Marner scored one goal, but it wasn't William Nylander scoring. It wasn't John Tavares scoring, right? It was the guys around them that the play drivers were setting up to score those goals. So the Islanders lack that, and that might be a major obstacle moving forward when they start to play more teams who are in the playoff hunt. I understand they're playing well right now, despite most of those teams not being in the playoff hunt, and they should be winning these games. It's true. But when they play games against the Toronto Maple Leafs, they have the Wild coming up soon. They even play tonight. They're going to be playing the Los Angeles Kings, who are in the playoffs at this moment. You need
Tonight
the
isn't Thursday.
Tonight isn't Thursday, correct? You need the playmakers, and I don't mean the guys who just rack up assists. I'm talking about guys who can drive offense, create an offensive zone rush, skate the puck into the offensive zone cleanly, set up the offense in the offensive zone, cycle the puck, get defenders out of lanes, create havoc. These are the kinds of players that they need, and that's what they lacked against the Maple Leafs the other night, and that's what they're going to continue to lack until someone either steps up or someone comes in.
Yeah, if they can get into the playoffs and they really lock it down, that's where the Islanders can do damage against teams, really good teams. They make the playoffs, presumably they're good. Say the last couple of years things have got a little fluky, a little crazy,
Yep.
but the Islanders have deserved to make the playoffs the last few years, and that's totally fine. They've gone far enough and made enough noise that uh, at the end of it, they were well deserving. But as it stands now, they still have to get to the playoffs, but they've gone 2-10-3 against teams in playoff position so far this season, per Andrew Gross. That really hasn't changed much since Saturday because they've only played the Flyers again. Um, it's not their home record and their away record are almost identical. 8-7-3 at home, 7-7-3 on the road. Um, they're 7-2-1 in their last 10. They've gotten points in 14 of 18 or whatever the case is. You can go on and on about that. But the points that are on the table against the 2-0 loss against the Capitals, the 3-1 loss against the Leafs. The Leafs could kind of fall off, and they're all of a sudden the team that the Islanders are chasing in a wild card spot, right? And Toronto's only played 38 games.
Right.
Islanders have played 35. That's not, yes, there's games in hand, but 6 points is not the difference between those two teams right now.
Right.
36 and 53 are, not a big math guy. That's not 6. The difference between those is not 6.
Right.
So that's where the Islanders, they really just need to get their confidence back and start winning these games, even if it's against the West. They can't afford to lose any games at this point, but they will. They need to get their confidence against these better teams. It's been a problem all season. They've clearly, they've only gotten points in 5 of 15 games. And in reality, regardless of them getting a point after regulation, they've lost 13 games against teams in playoff position. And going to their full record, they've lost 20 games this season out of 35.
Yep.
That's not a winning formula, right?
Correct.
I understand 6 points is 6 points. If it matters at the end of the day, that's great. I'll celebrate 6 losses and them figuring it out, but it's not really enough. So they need to start figuring it out, or even just collecting wins past regulation.
Yep.
They haven't really been able to do that either. Another point against Toronto, I'll ask this as the question with it was the back-to-back Coyotes followed by the Leafs. Any questions about the goaltending decisions there for you
Not really.
that you think that was expected?
No, it doesn't bother me. They're going with the two goalie rotation. I understand that Sorokin has gotten the majority of starts, Varlamov has to start too. I looked at the sample sizes. Obviously, a bigger sample size for Varlamov against Toronto just because he's been around longer. I think Sorokin only actually played one game. I think it was a loss as well. But I didn't really see a correlation there either. Varlamov actually didn't necessarily have a great record against Toronto in his history. But I just think it was one of those things where it was like, okay, it's Varlamov's day. Just give him the start because I
You
just
don't
think
think there's
they're
any thought deeper than
no,
that?
no
It's
thought deeper than that.
Sorokin's
I
playing
think
this day. This is, this
yep,
is what's happening. Okay.
that's all it is because they're comfortable with both guys in net. Doesn't matter who's in net on any night. They're comfortable with both of those guys. So I don't think there was any thought to it. I think it was just, yep, it's Varlamov's night,
It gets
and
Sorokin a
that's it.
couple extra days, which,
Sure,
he didn't look great. 3 goals on 17 shots against the Flyers. It's Sorokin.
right.
On Tuesday night, some people were pointing out he likes to get playing time.
Yeah,
He
that's
likes
true
to
too.
do it. He likes getting shots. So was that too much time off in between games, Friday
It was
to
like 3,
Tuesday?
4 days.
That's a lot of time for a goalie that wants to play, though.
No, I
And
agree.
and he still has the energy and all that. Is like you kind of want to figure that out. I question it because not only was Sorokin not in net and Varlamov was, Wallstrom was also sat in that game, and all both of it together is just like, obviously you don't know Wallstrom's going to be sat when you put the lineup together for Friday night against the Coyotes. But I feel like, not only did you have the goalie that's really been carrying the mail this season, although Varlamov's been better as of the last few weeks, probably just kind of finally getting into a groove here. But Sorokin's been the one stirring the drink for you, keeping you in games,
Yeah,
stealing them when it's possible, or at least just playing really well despite the team's record and his personal record. His numbers are still really, really good. I'm just not sure how you don't play they won 4-0 against the Coyotes. Varlamov could have easily have played that game. And then the goalie that's hot, the one that's playing really, really well and that wants to continue to prove and play, keeps the games closer together Saturday to Tuesday, not by a whole lot, but enough, maybe enough. Um, it was just curious to me. I
I
didn't
think
I
that
didn't love the move.
if there was any thought behind it, it was just there's a lot of games coming up. It's every other day at this point. So, who's next? Sorokin? Okay. Varlamov will play next. Back to Sorokin after. If Varlamov will probably play against the Kings tonight. If, Sorokin could probably play too. Maybe Trotz wants to throw him in to get a little bit of a bounce back in,
Sure.
get a few more reps. Could see that too, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's Varlamov. They went with Sorokin when they needed him. Now that it's every other day, they're probably just going to try and go 50% for each of them.
It's entirely possible. I hope I hope that Sorokin gets a few more here and there. Not
You
necessarily
do.
back to backs, but if they're playing 4 games in 7 days, if there's a back to back, you get Varlamov in there, but and maybe in some other games against, again, some weaker teams, this and that. I didn't lose confidence in him. It's just Sorokin's just really good.
Yeah.
There's just no reason to not play him in my, or like, again, I'm not saying play him back to back.
Yeah. No,
Just
it's fair.
just pick those games. It's not a big deal, um, to do that. I'm trying to trust the process here. It just, like, something's not working, and it's like, Trotz always gets on. This is a great segue. Trotz gets on his a lot of his younger players for the little things, and I think it's fair to get on Trotz about little things as from our perspective. If we're gonna start dissecting, these little things clearly count, right? He'll be the first one to tell you, with sitting Wallstrom on Saturday, which is going to be my next question. What did you think about that? And what did you think of his response, maybe more importantly, against the Flyers?
I see both sides. Um, I don't necessarily think that there's anything wrong with sitting Wallstrom to try and, just show him like, hey, go sit up in the press box, watch the game from above, get a bird's eye view, apply some things in your head, and come back the next game and try and execute. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. However, I do kind of think it had the reverse effect on him in yesterday's game. Um,
Threw him off his rhythm a little bit.
I think sure, if that's how you want to put it, more, he was trying hard not to make a mistake, in my opinion, rather than
He
just
was
going
definitely
out there
holding
and
his stick
playing.
tight.
Yeah. So, and there were a couple of things that he tried to do, like he tried to, deke through defenders. That was something he was not supposed to try and do. Something that Trotz pointed out to him and said, you can't be doing that kind of thing. Um, Couple of turnovers that I noticed that were kind of the reason why he got benched, and it wasn't nearly as bad as the one in the Arizona game, and luckily they were winning at that point, and it didn't there was no harm, no foul, um, until he got benched. But I think that he was just at that point maybe overthinking it a little bit. Now he did contribute to a goal. He was the reason why Noah Dobson scored, screening the goaltender, which was good to see. He did a couple of really good things in that game as well. So, listen, even Trotz said after the game, he was like, "Look, I really liked his response. There were one or two things that, yeah, he could have cleaned up, but I like the way he played after that, and he'll be fine moving forward." So I don't think
It's
there was
interesting.
anything wrong with it. I understand people are saying the timing of it wasn't great because of who their opponent was. I could understand that too, but it's probably one of those things in Trotz's mind where he's saying, if I let this go, he's going to forget.
I can understand that.
Yeah.
I can understand that. I forgot what I was going to say, but I can understand the approach there. It's just not fun to see when they lose. I think that's the thing.
Yeah.
You you'd
And listen,
you'd
I
prefer they
understand that.
just figure it out.
The other thing too is with Trotz, I understand everybody says, you can criticize Trotz, and you're right, you can. This is all fairly new to him, though. He's still trying to figure out in this weird season that the Islanders are having what does and doesn't work when his team's not get going. For a large majority of his Islander tenure, his team's been going, and they've been going, and they've been going, and they've been going. Right now, it's like start, stop, and how do I get this team to stay on track? How do I get this team to get to another level, another gear? And it's going to take some trial and error. But we're talking about Barry Trotz here. We're not talking about Jack Capuano. There's competence there. There's and not to say Jack Capuano is not a competent person, but he wasn't the right guy at the time. Barry Trotz is the right guy. He's in the right place. And again, I'll say this like I said a couple weeks ago. There's no better head coach in the NHL. Yeah, sure, you don't like his decisions. There was a couple of questionable ones that maybe he didn't have to make those decisions. Sure, nobody's perfect, right? However, these are the woes that he's working through. This is new to him with this team. He's got to figure it out. And listen, if there's a year where you need to figure it out, make it this year, right? Because next year when they come back and they retool and they expect to be back in the playoff hunt and they're not going through this weird inconsistency, you'll have it figured out. You'll know how to get what you got to get out of your guys. But for 3 years, he overachieved. Let's pump the brakes on, saying I've seen comments like fire Trotz, send him to the moon. And it's like, seriously, it's how quick we forget. It's what have you done for me lately? And I understand the frustration.
That's a really hard to watch because it's like we're 35 games removed plus preseason from game 7 of the semifinal,
Right.
Stanley Cup semifinal.
Right.
And that's the yard sale, get rid of fire sale, get rid of everybody thing. Like
Right.
I really don't see that. I don't like that conversation because again, are the Islanders the Tampa Bay Lightning? No. But there's a lot of teams. San Jose was like this when we spoke with Kevin Kerr. San Jose was like this. Tampa Bay Lightning were like this. He reminded us of San Jose. We reminded him of um,
Of the
of the
Lightning.
Lightning.
Yeah.
And so no, the Islanders are not either of those teams. They're obviously really different, but we're not talking about the content here of the teams. Like we're not
Right.
talking about the minutia.
We're
We're
just
talking about
talking about
what
the
happened.
adventure, how to
We're
get
talking about
there.
the adventure and how to get there. That's a really good way to put it. And it's just not a linear journey. I think for any team, teams make a lot of strides. Look at Vegas.
Yeah.
They make the Stanley Cup final. They're back and forth. They could have easily missed the playoffs at any one of the last 3 years.
Yeah.
They got beat by Montreal last year. That's not a good look.
Yeah.
Look at Colorado. They are a better team than the Islanders. They've done less in the last 2 seasons than the Islanders.
It's a very good point.
Right? So you're going to kind of bounce around what your capabilities are. They're going to figure things out. Sometimes off-season moves were really great, and they really worked out for the Islanders. This wasn't the year. Parise's
Right.
coming to his own. Chara is becoming neutral, which is fine. But yeah, the injury, like, there's too many really good excuses. Even if you don't want to call them excuses, there's too many good caveats. The COVID situation, the lengthy road trip to start the season, injuries. That's a lot of good stuff that
Yeah.
happens to teams all the time. I don't know that you chalk it up to this team sucks. Is it fun to watch? No, of course it's not. They're a low event team to begin with. It's hardly fun if they're not winning at all. But when they're really losing and they're not able to play really good teams and compete, it's a lot less fun. So no, nobody's having fun right now. Not even the people that believe in the team are really enjoying this because it's very hard to see them through. You want to be positive. You want to see what the future is. It's hard. It's hard to kind of think about how they can actually do it. But um, overall, the last week, do you have any thoughts since the last time we spoke as we kind of get towards the end here?
Yeah, I mean, I think they look really good. Aside from the Toronto game, they've taken a really good step forward in collecting points and playing their game. There have been moments, there have been bumps in the road, there have been blips, and you'd like to see them work those things out, right? There have been uninterested periods, uninterested, half games. You want to see them work that out, but for the most part, they've they're starting to look, and I don't even know if I could say starting, but they're continuing to look a little bit more like the team that we're used to seeing. I think they played the Flyers like 3 out of the 4 or 5 games since the last episode. So I guess that helps because they have lost their last 12. Is it 13 now?
A
Um,
lot. They lost
a
a
lot.
lot.
They've lost a lot. But it's nonetheless, it's good for the Islanders because, again, I know everybody wants a high draft pick, but they need to win these games because the players on the team are still going to be there next year. And they need this rigor and they need this regiment to continue so that even if they don't make the playoffs this year, they can go into next year and learn from their mistakes and take another step in the right direction.
Granted, they've played Edmonton, New Jersey, Philly, Arizona, um, the Capitals, and Toronto. They've only lost 2 games in January so far,
There you go.
right? Like, again, a lot of those teams are towards the bottom of the barrel. And the 2 teams you really want to
Right.
see them play well against
And it's going to
are
be
the
January.
Capitals.
It's going to be January 27th when you're hearing this. They've lost 2 games in January.
And it actually goes back further. They won their last game um,
And they had a really good
against the
December.
30th. Right. They had a pretty decent end to the month. Losing to Detroit wasn't great. Losing to Chicago wasn't great. That Vegas game they really should have had. That was frustrating, but um, that shows that they can play, right? Like that they were in the midst of a lot of shit going on in December. They skated with a really good team in Vegas. They beat Boston. Granted, it was in during the Bruins COVID time. So
Yeah.
their COVID time. I don't know. I don't even know how else to say that at this point. So yeah, I think they need to do a better job against those playoff teams. I think that'll
Sure.
start giving the fans some confidence. It'll
Sure.
give me some confidence.
Yeah.
Frankly, I don't have it yet. You can tell me that they've won a million in a row. It really doesn't do. It was kind of like last season in the Metro, only playing those teams. They didn't do well against those other teams that were really fighting for spots. They got a lot of their points against some
Right.
other teams, and it's a similar problem this year. The thing is, it's blown up, and when you're not able to get a lot of those games against uh, teams in your own division that aren't very good or in your conference that aren't very good, it's going to expose you a little bit.
Right.
So again, they got to the playoffs and did what they had to do, but they have to get there, and they don't have the luxury of the schedule this year as they did last year. In fact, it flipped completely with how hard it was. Granted, the start of the season and so on, whatever.
Yeah.
So definitely something to look at. They play a couple of good teams before our next episode, so we'll keep an eye on that. To start to end on a good note here, I want to talk about Matt Barzell,
Yeah.
who's who's having a great season. His last
Excellent.
15 games have been fantastic. What have you seen out of him? What are the stats looking like? Can he really propel this team forward?
Yeah, I mean, he's got 18 points in his last 15 games, 4 goals, 14 assists, and the thing that stood out the most to me about the point total is that 7 of those points have come on the power play. So, we saw it yesterday where against the Flyers where Trotz really started to double shift Barzell on the power play, essentially
along
out
with
there for the
Dobson.
along with Dobson, essentially out there for the full 2 minutes, and that just goes to show you, how much of a play driver he has been. He's just it every year you kind of just see him take another step in the right direction where he is just creating his own space really well. He's now pulling off these crazy dekes and moves to gain zones and move around players and uh he is the number one elite center on a team that you wish was contending for a playoff spot right now. They're gonna still try, but if they were in a playoff spot, you would say, yeah, he's the reason, right? He's their number one center. He's the elite forward on this team. Um, he's just been excellent, and it's good to see that even though the Islanders might not be in a playoff position and their season has gotten off to a rough start and everything, he's stayed consistent throughout most of this year. So surprised he's not an all-star, but he's sure playing like one.
Absolutely. Um, I'll echo everything without repeating it. I agree. Bart, he's playing fantastic. You kind of see him hitting his stride. He's on an incredible
He's
streak.
shooting more, which is really good for him.
He could do even more of that, surprisingly. And we talked about that in the post game last night, where
Hmm.
the whole team needs to do that.
Yeah,
Bailey, there was a lot of opportunities where you're like, Butch was losing his mind in the booth last night, just
yeah,
like incredulous to the fact that they just weren't shooting. They're like, what are you waiting for? How much cold? It's like in beer league where you see they beat one guy, they beat two guys. And you're like, all right, at a
yeah,
certain point, you got to get the puck to the net. Um, and then they lose the puck, and then you got to back check the other way because they're too tired because they've been hot dogging it up the ice the whole time. It's a real pain in the ass. You don't like watching it. In the Islanders case, it's just they're getting good opportunities and they're making an extra pass. They need to just get the puck to the net in general.
agreed.
Um, would like to see Barzell pot a few more goals as well. So I lied. We have two more quick things. I promise.
Sure.
Um, Palmieri might be ready to return.
Hmm.
You kind of hope he can be a little bit of a catalyst as well against again keep getting some depth in the lineup, moving some players around. Bellows has been really good. He's been
Yeah,
quietly good. But if Palmieri can really become himself again in the second half of the season, like a lot like Parise, that's a huge boost. And Pulak, you hope that he can return soon. This has become
that's the big
almost
one.
a 3-month endeavor here.
Yeah.
Um, Definitely questions about what you do with Robin Salo, what you do with Austin Zernak, what you do with Dano Chara as far as taxi squad scratches, but down to the Bridgeport Islanders. Kind of what they can do there. Um, any kind of quick thoughts on that situation? What do you think they can do? What makes the most sense? Go from there.
It makes the most sense to me to continue having Salo get that exposure. He's getting better in every game, in my opinion. Um, it makes even more sense to give Zdeno Chara at 44 years old a breather. I understand, Trotz is saying he's this elite specimen, and at 44 years old, he's in incredible shape, and he's probably right. Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say he's wrong, because to even be skating in the NHL at that age, yeah, you probably have to be, but still it's probably good for him to get that rest so that he could be hit at his top peak performance when he does play.
Right.
Same could be said for Andy Green, but not obviously as dire as Chara, because again, I'll say it for the fifth time in probably this week that in just regular conversation, if nobody knew Andy Green was 39, nobody would care about him being on the roster because he's just there's nothing wrong with Andy Green. He does everything right. I'm not
Yeah,
even
it's
I can't
it,
even front on that. He's just
he
a great player.
very very rarely do I see him make any kind of mistake.
Yeah, exactly.
Super
That's what
super
I'm talking
rare
about.
to see it, and if he does, it's so minor.
Yeah,
But even even good players, Dobson last night and Brock Nelson made that mistake on the goal. The guy coming out of the corner, whose name Mayhew kind of stepped out. It
yeah,
was a really good move. Great. Um, great movement on his part. You got to give him credit when it's due. But you make mistakes and that's fine. You just you gotta pick it up on the other end um,
Exactly.
when you get the opportunity, and that just kind of leads to shooting the puck, setting your teammates up when you can, making better passes, and I don't know. I have some confidence still. I really need to see them play well this next week against the Kings and the Wild. To me,
Yeah.
it's not a huge test, but it's definitely it's a litmus test.
Yeah, I mean, the Kings is a good test. I think the Wild are a big test. They're a top of the league team. So, when you get
Definitely.
to Sunday, I would say that that's the biggest test. I expect a good game from the Islanders tonight against the Kings. And again, like you like to say, and I always agree with you. Even if they don't win, you just want to see them at least playing a good hockey game.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. You just want them to see them play good hockey.
Yeah,
Um, limit the mistake. You want to they lose on a good play against them, not a mistake that they made.
right.
Kind of thing. Just play a good hockey game. So I think I think that's right for sure. So I think that wraps it up here. Thank you to the DraftKings. Make sure to use that THPN promo code with our friends there. Make sure to use the NHP20 promo code with Manscaped. Thanks, as always, to the Hockey Podcast Network and our partners over at Isles Fix. And thank you to all of you. You've been sticking along with us all season long. And when the team hasn't been doing great at times and during pauses and during a whole bunch of stuff, guests, no guests, everything in between. We really appreciate you. And if you really appreciate us, and I know we would love it, please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to the show. That'd be fantastic. You can follow us across the social media at Nassman Hockey. Join our Discord. It's in our link tree bio with all the other links to cool stuff that you can do. Lastly, you can find James's work at the fourth period. You can find mine at the Hockey Writers. Make sure to subscribe to Isles Fix to get that daily newsletter. And until next time, what's going on there?